Bullshit.
Pretend for a moment you've entered a parallel universe, free of bullshit and full of bold solutions. That's what the No BS show is all about. I'm your host, Dave Mastovich. Let's cut the bullshit. March Madness. The phrase rolls off the tongue, triggers memories, and signals what's coming again, like it or not, and we are in the midst of it now. But where did the catchy name for the NCAA men's basketball tournament come from, and how did it become a cultural tradition? The answers make for a case study in how grassroots marketing and creative storytelling can build brands, create rituals, and influence behavior. The NCAA tournament celebrates its 78th anniversary this year. It wasn't known as March Madness until 1982 when CBS broadcaster Brent Musburger borrowed the phrase used by the Illinois High School Association for their state basketball tournament since 1939. Yeah, old Brent Musburger, which we'll talk about with our guest today. But it's not just a cool name. The NCAA tournament combines talented college players, fan loyalty, and a winner-go-home format with creative messaging from partners like ESPN, CBS, and hundreds of sponsors to win our hearts and minds. How can you learn from March Madness and make your marketing better? First, make it about them, us. Are you ready to fill out your bracket? You probably already did. You're probably looking through it. It's probably busted up now. If not, you know you're going to hear about it from someone somewhere. It's estimated 35 million people complete those NCAA brackets. You can watch multiple games at the same time on your TV, smartphone, or desktop. Sponsors offer interactive promotions, something for everyone. Number 2, make an emotional impact. Video highlights become works of art with fast-paced shots and inspirational music. Stories are told about players, coaches, families, schools, and even mascots. The end result is an emotionally charged 3-week event featuring Cinderella teams, heartbreaking losses, and amazing performances. Number 3, make it memorable. The big dance, bracketology, Sweet 16, Elite 8, the Final Four. Now that's memorable messaging. Number 4, make social media part of your marketing mix. More than $1 billion was spent on marketing related to March Madness last year, surpassing even the Super Bowl. Social media continues to take a bigger piece of that pie as sponsors engage customers with promotions like Northwestern Mutual's Bracket Challenge. The NCAA and ESPN get on the action with a Facebook page of 500,000 plus fans and the tournament of tweets that exceeded 3 million last year. Enjoy March Madness and make your marketing better. Count it. 2 points for you. Our guest today is Tom Rodriguez, the principal of TR Industrial, a manufacturer's rep agency. But why is he here today as we're in the midst of March Madness that started last week, and we're getting hot and heavy, and a lot of brackets are probably already busted up. The reason Tom is here, he's a marketing guy, he's a messaging guy, but he's a basketball junkie just like me. Tom has been the president of the Bell Vernon Travel Basketball Association. He's also been a coach and promotional director and social director for one of the premier AAU programs in Western Pennsylvania and maybe even throughout the country. Tom, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Dave, for having me.
We're in the midst of March Madness. Last week it started. It's now hot and heavy. Just talk about, real quick, we're going to start off with one quick question that we're going to come back to later, and then we'll go through the regular format. What's your first memory of March Madness?
Wow, good one, Dave. First memory is Villanova scoring the huge upset over Georgetown in the NCAA final, which was, what, you probably know the year better than I do.
85.
That was my first vivid memory of March Madness.
So I'm a year or so older than you, but vastly more mature. So my first memory is Jim Spanarkel and Duke, and my dad watching Gene Banks and Jim Spanarkel on that amazing run when they lost to Kentucky. And then the year after that will also be discussed later, and that was the Bird Magic game. So the reason I asked that is we're going to talk about the Villanova experience because that's your first memory. We're going to talk about some of the other ones. We're going to talk about the basketball side, the messaging side, and the marketing side. But first, as our show goes, and I'm looking over at Suzanne, our producer, she's trying to rein me in already. As our show goes, we always start off finding some interesting nuggets about our guest and their career path. So tell us about your journey to get here.
Okay, it's not not an extremely exciting journey, but one nonetheless that does tie a whole lot that has to do with marketing and mass solutions. Graduated Penn State University in 1990. I had a marketing degree. Did not really find work in the marketing field, so I went into department store retail. I grinded it out there for about 10 years. And then after a job that I really wanted within the company, I was with May Company, which is Kaufman's department store for you Pittsburgh people. I decided that I'd call some BS, and I decided to go to work for myself. I've been an independent sales representative now for almost 17 years. And it's something that, it's one of those where I would tell people out there that, at some point in your career, we're all in it for ourselves. And, marketing myself, I decided to take a shot. And, 17 years later, I'm glad I took that shot.
Got a bunch of comments and questions tied to that. So one of our upcoming guests is also a Penn State graduate around the same time, Amy Bradley, who was on WJAC TV. So she was out at Penn State at the same time as you, Tom. I know there's 100,000 students, but you didn't happen to know.
I was not fortunate enough to know Amy Bradley, no.
Would have been Amy Williams, I think.
Okay.
Second question is the retail for 10 years, Kaufman's. What did you do?
Well, I was in management. I was actually started with Sears. They had a management training program, so I went through that, and I managed people at the department level. Was at Sears for about half that time. Came to Kaufman's, where at Kaufman's I managed the big ticket departments, the guys on commission, salespeople.
So I have a number of questions there. So you got your first two jobs are with big name brands. Talk about if that had any impact on you choosing the company.
Well, the first job with Sears was a job because I needed a job. My move from Sears was that the company at the time was starting to lose some focus. They had just gotten out of the catalog business. They didn't really have a direction. They were losing market share. Kaufman's, two reasons. Number one, Sears wasn't paying very well. Kaufman's did pay very well. Kaufman's they were the name department store in the city of Pittsburgh. So there was some status associated with my decision. Plus, I was living on the East Coast at the time. I had an opportunity to come back here to Pittsburgh. I was only, 25, 26 years old at the time. Thought it was just a tremendous opportunity to get some more retail experience, and perhaps take that into buying, which was something I was way more interested in than managing people at the store level, especially with the hours.
So this show is about leadership and communication. So I have a series of questions. The first is, you just mentioned that you liked buying much more than the leadership of people, but talk about the things you remember most about your challenges with Sears leading people and then with leading people at Kaufman's. What were similar and what was different?
Well, at Sears, the challenge was they had made a decision to stick with their management training program, hiring kids out of college, but at the same time, they were closing their catalog and cutting back on 20, 30-year employees. So the challenge there was to find a way to communicate people that were going to be working for me who were very averse to new blood, people that have been on the job 10, 15, 20, 30 years and having to answer to a 22, 23-year-old coming right out of college. So, you need to, as much as you may not empathize with what they're going through, at the time, it was, you need to find a way to make them your friends and yet still maintain their status as their boss.
Mm-hmm. So what were some things that worked for you? Because I like hearing those first stories, the stories about that first job, because here you are 22 years old and you're leading people with not really management training, no matter how much the books talk about management. So talk about how you communicated. What were some things that worked and what were some things that maybe you look back and go, why'd I do that?
Well, the thing that works is the best for me was being hands-on, putting time in on the sales floor, that you weren't necessarily trained to do, but showing them that, hey, I'm going to get my hands dirty with you, and I'm going to show you how to do the job and get it done. And, we're going to work together on this. I'm not going to just sit back and tell you what to do because that's what I was trained to do. I'm going to show you what to do, and we'll have success together.
So where were you with Sears? What location? What city?
I actually trained right here in Pleasant Hills, West Mifflin store. And then we got transferred over here to the north side to help close that store down, which was probably in late 1990, 91.
And then you were out of Pittsburgh for a while.
Yes, East Coast, Wilmington, Delaware, for another couple years. A new store, same same type people, same type challenges.
So you said something. We'll stay on the Sears for a minute, then we'll get into the Kaufman's leadership. You made a great point. Talk about what you were saying with Sears going astray from their mission and their messaging, and how you were there right at that time, and what impact it had on the company.
At the time we're talking, wow, good many years ago now, 1990. And that was still before the days of internet and cell phones and all that. So, but what was happening is that I believe that the catalog business, which was a fundamental part of the Sears business before the department stores were, it was struggling. They could not find a way out of it. They decided to close it. And, with that, cost, a ton of jobs. And at the time, you're talking 1990, you're talking people, there was not the competition that Sears faces today back then, so, I think that management, was still a little bit fat and happy and a little bit arrogant, and they did not use resources to figure out how it is, what's our next step going to be? So
they didn't do the marketing intel that we talk about on this show a lot.
They did not. They took it for granted, and it led to their demise. And look at them now. I think they're going to start closing more and more Sears stores. The Sears brand name, I mean, their Kenmore Appliance, which was their brand name, which is was their bread and butter. Don't even hear about it anymore. They don't advertise it anymore. Brand. Right. Very, very, the strongest appliance brand in the country. They don't even advertise it anymore.
So fast forward to 95, 96, we're now hitting the mid-90s, and there's almost this invention of the internet. And you go to Kaufman's, the bigger brand name. Talk about the leadership there, because now you're in a position a little bit better to what you were suited for from the buying standpoint, but you're leading other buyers maybe?
Well, they're actually, it was a unique challenge there because of the departments that I managed there. The people that I managed were all commission, employees. There was no base. They strictly got paid for what they sold, which is exactly what I do now, the last 15 plus years of my career. And the challenge there is that, not only do you need to sell, but you also need to present your merchandise. So big ticket departments like furniture and electronics, I mean, you have to be priced right to sell. You have to follow planograms. Things have to look, you have to be impressed. The customer has to walk in, and it's all part of the experience, not how much the salesperson knows. Because when the customer walks in, it's not the salesperson they see first. They see the presentation of the floor. So my challenge there is how can I get these guys to just do a little bit for me? Because they were of the opinion that, listen, I don't get paid to dust. I don't get paid to sign. I get paid to sell. So that job was a challenge because I really needed to just go in my suit and tie, because that's the way we're supposed to be dressed. But I mean, literally, I can't tell you how many shirts I ruined from ring around the collar because I had to go in and do the work. I had to set the sales floor. I had one guy that I would set up. I'd have to do furniture sets, move televisions around. I mean, get back into the stock rooms. I mean, it was down and dirty. I mean, I was doing stock work, is what I was doing in management. And I tell you, I spent a couple years. By the time I put 6 months into that job, I had earned the respect of the commission salespeople, so I could get a little bit more out of them week in and week out. And really what I learned the most from that job was, it wasn't the ideal job for me. It wasn't what I dreamed, but boy, I got a first class master's degree in managing people.
A lot of stuff there. Were you ever able to convince the commission salespeople that stuff impacted their sales and that they should maybe do a little bit of it?
Well, they would never admit it, but there would be times that after I'd spent a year or two on that job, that I would have the planogram and the weekly ad and the signs for that.
Define that term, planogram.
Planogram is basically how your superiors, how the regional vice presidents believed your floor should be merchandised in order to best sell. So they basically gave you a blueprint as to how they wanted this collection, that collection situated on your floor, based on everything to where the escalators were and where the elevators were. I was in the coffins downtown, which you're familiar with, 12 floors, nothing like it anymore, anywhere. So, planogram, you follow the planogram.
That's good stuff. We're going to have that on
Oh,
the show
really?
notes. I have that on the show notes. Suze knows of those, but I'm not there logistically.
Okay, well.
So that's a good education for consumer goods. So at the peak time, 10 salespeople commission, 12 at a time, you're leading 8?
I would say between furniture, carpeting, electronics, probably 15.
Okay, so you're leading a sales force. You're having to communicate with them on a regular basis. You're having to show them that you're in the trenches. What were some of the specific communication tactics that you used that worked? How'd you run your meetings? How'd you communicate with them? How'd you motivate them?
Well, I tried to make, ties to personal lives. I tried to befriend, I tried to, learn a little bit about their personal lives, where they come from, what their personal situation is, what they like to do to have fun. Some of these guys, as a matter of fact, one of my closest friends who broke off on his own and has a retail store in the Strip District now. We went and had a few drinks together every now and then. It didn't hurt. So I took care of these guys, a couple lunches now and then, and the more you give, the more you get back.
So you made it about them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Then you decide, and you have to walk us through this because this is a courageous decision, having done it myself and knowing the fear that you have and the self-doubt that I still have to this day, even after our company growing exponentially over the last 10 years. Talk about when you started thinking you could do it and what plans you did before you left the full-time job to prepare to do it.
Okay. Well, as much as I once I got a handle on the job at Kaufman's and things were running pretty smoothly, it was still a tremendous grind. It was still a 50, 55, 60-hour work week. The stress level wasn't as high because I had things under control now. But I'm getting into my late 20s and I'm saying to myself, I really don't want to be a department manager, my entire career, So I looked into some opportunities in the buying offices. They liked the job I had done and I had the background. So I went, I went into the buying offices. I started out as an assistant buyer in the home textile division. So, I learned the ropes there, and it was very much more in line with what I wanted to do, in line with my education. So I'd spent a couple years in the buying offices, and I was very much ready to be a full-time buyer. Didn't work out that way. Got passed over for a position I thought I was very well qualified for a couple of years. But what I had done while I was there is I started building new relationships. And those were relationships with the vendors, with the sales representatives that were calling on the buyers. So I got to know some of those guys. And a couple of those guys said, hey, you really have the personality to be in sales. Would you like to, or would you be interested in coming to do what we do? I made a decision. I gave it one last shot, to get the job that I wanted. Kaufman said, hey, we love the work you do, but we have other people that we feel are more qualified. And so I made the decision to go into sales, on my own. Now it was completely independent because the gentleman that I went to work for, he was independent, so I was actually functioning as his sub representative. But I just decided, I'm getting close to 30. I was getting ready to get married. I wanted to have a family right away. And if I was going to take a shot, I thought, well, now's the time to take a shot. So I did. So that was 1997.
Impressive. So the question that I always ask people after they do something like this, when they make that big career move, is I jokingly say you have that oh God moment. And for me, one job, it was at 10:50 on the first day that I had the oh God, what have I done moment. But usually it's the first week, second week, third week, maybe a couple months in. What happened when you first made the leap that kind of made you go, oh, geez?
Well, the OGs came a lot faster than I thought it would. First, I went in a little bit naive. I saw, what the car the guy was working for was driving. I saw how he dressed. I thought that, man, oh man, that within, I'd be making his kind of money in no time. The oh God moment was when, a year or two in, when, he started not paying me like he promised he was paying me. And I thought, oh God, what have I gotten myself into? I went into it without a contract. I thought, oh man, what am I going to do? So I had that oh God moment. And fortunately, again, I got to know people within the industry. I got to know other sales reps. I'd built some other relationships so that I was to a point where I was going to say, you know what, this isn't working out. I'm going to go out on my own completely. And that's what I did about 3 years in. And that's when I said, oh God, look where I'm at. I'm making less money than what I made when I left Coffins. If I'm going to make this work and I'm determined to make it work, I'm going to be, living on ramen noodles for a while, so I went in thinking in 3 years that I would have an established business and be living high off the hog. In reality it took about 7 to just be doing okay. And, took me 12 to 15 years to get where I really wanted to be,
But you got there.
But I got there. That's the thing. And the thing is, if I hadn't taken a shot at age 29, and I tell this to people all the time that talk about great business ideas they have, what they'd really like to do, I felt like looking back, if I hadn't taken the shot at 29, I may have never taken it at 39 or 45 or 47 or 48, which I'm going to be soon.
And the value of that is that you're doing it on your own and you've built it, you've grown as a leader, you've grown personally and professionally, and the intrinsic value of your own business is just, you can't even.
No, you can't beat it. You can't beat it. There's just a total different sense of satisfaction from doing it on your own, just like you've done it here, Dave.
Thank you. So I'm hitting my so's again. That segues nicely into the next question, because you had to have seen a lot of it when you had the first move with the guy that was, you were under him for 3 years. It could have been with the Coffins and the Byers situation, not promoting, or it could have been before that at Sears. But think about a moment when you thought there was something like a work ethic, a boss, leadership, something that made you just have to say, that's bullshit.
Bullshit.
Well, I would tell you that the first, when I stepped out and decided to go into sales, and I was functioning as a sub representative, I do believe that the guy I went to work for had all good intentions in mind. I believe he had more work than he knew what to do with. But I think that perhaps 6 months, into our relationship, when he started handing me leads that I would follow up on, and half the leads were potential customers, he told me, that were not even in business. And again, this was before the days of internet, so you couldn't just Google somebody. But when I'm making cold calls to try to generate more business, and phone numbers are disconnected, I just said, you know what, this is BS. I understand you're probably doing this because you promised me a certain salary. If you can't afford to pay me, then you can't afford to pay me. Don't let me twist in the wind. Let's not continue this relationship when it's not beneficial for either. I'm not gonna sue you. I'm not gonna, I need to build my own brand. So, I'm politely calling BS. There's a couple extra bucks perhaps that you owe me. If you don't want to pay me, that's fine. But I'm now on my own. I'm calling, bullshit. And if I so happen to be competing against you for the same business now, well, that's just the way that it goes.
Did he pay you what he owed you?
Yes, he did.
Good. Let's put you on the hot spot, the hot seat. When's a learning experience, a teachable moment when maybe you were the BSer and you look back and say, that's bullshit, and what did you learn from it and how might it help our audience?
Well, I do pride myself on not being a bullshit, kind of guy. But the one thing that I could say, and it's still difficult even now, as long as I've been in the sales force and dealing with people, is that, do not hesitate. Don't make rash decisions. But don't leave people hanging around. If you feel a certain way or you're not feeling a certain way, you need to say that quickly. You don't need to wait a week. If you say you're going to get back to somebody, in my experience, within about 24 hours how you really feel about the matter. Don't put it off. It doesn't do you or the person that you're working with or thinking about doing business with any good. So don't be a bullshitter. Even if you're really good at not BSing, like you're not, you're a very good non-BSer, Dave. Don't wait. Don't wait. And I believe that even when you are competing with people, you disagree with people. The one thing in today's society that just goes without it just don't be a BSer.
So that's your tool or tip. So you've given us your tool or tip. So you've kind of pushed ahead and got us off the agenda, but you've given us your tool or tip. So we still have to come back to you of when you, though, were the BSer. Was there an example there where you were a BSer? Were you held back?
I can't really recall. I really can't. Actually, Dave, you and I have been friends long enough. If you can remember an instance, you know me, I'll own up to it. If you remember an instance that you've caught me in BS.
Oh, I've caught you in BS. Yes, I have.
Okay. So,
and what we're going to do is we're going to save that for the second part of the show.
Okay.
So
I'm okay with it. I really am okay with it.
We're going to save you for the second part of the show. We'll be back with more from Tom Rodriguez of TR Industrial, a manufacturer's rep agency. He's also the president of Bell Vernon Travel Basketball and the social director and coaching staff member of Mass Solutions AAU. Tom, if our listeners want to connect with you, how can they reach you? What's your contact info?
Wow, you can.
You want to give them LinkedIn, Twitter? I know you're on.
I'm not on any of those. I'm not on any of those. They can contact me through your office, since now that I have all the gear, I'm doing some part-time consulting free of charge, or you can email me anytime.
Anything to say about Mass Solutions AAU basketball?
Wow, what an experience! It breaks my heart. I only have one son, and he now is going to be a senior in high school. So my AAU basketball experience with Mass Solution, unfortunately, has to come to an end. Unless, Dave, you want to adopt a couple girls.
Coach. You can coach.
No, it's been a fantastic experience. It's sad to see the days go.
It's amazing. Remember when Joey and Alec were in fourth grade? Joey Mascaro and my son Alec, and we had that first team. Oh my! Talk about going back in time. Thanks for being on the show, Tom.
Hey, I appreciate you having me. I had a blast.
Hey, you were another great guest, and it was our basketball edition. And thank you, our listeners. For show notes, go to Bold Solutions No BS. You'll find the show notes and other marketing and messaging resources. Sign up for Light Reading. Go to masssolutions.biz and get Light Reading that comes out every other week. It really is light, intended to be read in 2 minutes or less, and it just might trigger bright ideas for you. Remember, ask yourself, what's the big idea? Answer that question and build your messaging around it. It's all about bold solutions